when I started Kate's Take, it was absolutely to push myself outside of that comfort zone. Through that experience in those 5 years, the number of speaking engagements and the number of things that the podcast made possible that were all things outside of my comfort zone, I can't count them.
Well, hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Rock Your Brand podcast. I'm your host, Scott Voelker, a serial entrepreneur on a mission to help you. This show is designed to teach you, to inspire you, to motivate you to take massive action and build a future-proof business. So, whether you're just starting out or taking your existing business to the next level, this is your home. Now, if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's rock your brand. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Rock Your Brand podcast. This is episode 960, and today I've got an amazing guest that I want to share with you. A great conversation, a deep conversation of the ups and the downs of being an entrepreneur. And, the person I'm talking about is Kate Erickson, who also is a huge part of Entrepreneurs on Fire with John Lee Dumas over there. Now, I met Kate, I met her in person, if you want to say in person, a year and a half ago. And we hung out at Puerto Rico Masterminds. Myself, my wife was there, John Lee Dumas was there, and we were able to hang out there. And it was awesome. And we had some really, really good conversations. But I really got to know her and John a lot better. And I had John on really talking about his new book. And if you didn't listen to that episode, I'll link that up in the show notes. You should probably go listen to that one. A really, really good episode. But I wanted to get Kate on once again. Now, I had her on a couple of years ago now, maybe even 3 years ago. And she's really big on building processes and systems and really managing your time. And she has started 2 of her own podcasts. And both of those she started and then ended up stopping. And I wanted to ask her, why? Why did you start and stop? I really liked it. I thought a lot of people liked it. And I wanted to get to the bottom of that. I also wanted to hear from her exactly how she has felt through this journey. I mean, they've been at it a long time, very successful business, but we all know everything isn't what it always appears, right? And some people think that everything is always just amazing and everything looks perfect and they don't have any struggles. I wanted to dig into that. And Kate was really, really open and honest and transparent about some of the hard struggles along the way. And one of those could have been really bad for her and John, but they ended up dodging a bullet. And you're going to hear all about that. And you guys know, like when I do these interviews, it's not always about the tactics. It's not always about the strategy. It's about the people. It's about them being open and honest here to share with us not just the, oh my gosh, like you're awesome, like everything's perfect. It's more about what do you struggle with? What have you struggled with? How did you get through it? Because I think a lot of people talk about all of the highs and they don't talk about the lows. And the lows can be really, really hard, or as some people call it, the winter season. All right. So I think you're going to get a lot out of this one. We had a really, really good conversation. And I said to Kate, I go, even if we weren't hitting record right now, this would be our conversation. So I just wanted her and I to catch up. We hadn't talked in a while and I wanted to catch up with her, but it ended up turning into a really, really good episode. One that I think that you will have some huge takeaways from. And we do talk about how to be more productive and how to get more stuff done and how to really pick those right things to work on and focus on, and what has been their secret sauce. So all of that stuff we discuss. And again, I just want to say you are going to get a lot out of this just by listening in. And it might even be one you might want to come back to again. One of my favorite interviews here of 2021 so far. I got to be honest. It was really good. And I think because it was just loose and casual and we dug deep. So guys, sit back, relax, enjoy this episode that I did with my good friend, Kate Erickson. Enjoy. All right, Kate, what is up? Thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. It's been way too long. How are you doing?
I'm doing so good, Scott. Thank you so much for inviting me. Anytime I get to spend with you, chatting, catching up, I love it.
Yeah, well, I want to unpack a lot here because we haven't been, well, we were together about a year and a half ago now, I guess, in Puerto
Yep.
Rico for the Puerto Rico Mastermind. This year didn't happen for obvious reasons. But I really enjoyed our time that we spent when we did the podcast episode, which was 2-3 years ago now. But then getting to know you in person and just hanging out and just casually talking about life, not just business, was really, really awesome. You got to meet Lisa. She got to meet you and John. And I just wanted to get you back on and kind of catch up, and we can do it here and record it on the podcast. That's the beauty of a podcast.
I know. It's a beautiful world that we live in. I so distinctly remember it was at the dinner and the four of us caught some time outside and we're just like in this beautiful scenery, having a great chat, like getting to dive deep, not like surface level conversations, which, sometimes when there's a lot going on, there's a lot of people, you're at a mastermind, you're doing like 10 different things. It was really awesome to get to spend that time with you guys. So yeah, hey, here we are in podcast. We get to do it all over again.
Yeah, no, and a lot's happened. A lot's happened since we even just a year and a half ago. A lot's happening within the world. A lot's happened, but even with yourself, I think I don't know how long ago it was that you kind of stopped doing Kate's Take podcast and then you started doing Ditch Busy. I want to dig into that. I want to unpack that. I also want to talk about team size and keeping your business kind of light and some people like to build these massive businesses and these teams. And I'm more like you, I think, as far as I want to keep things simple and light. So I'd love to unpack all of those areas. So why don't we start with the podcast? Like, why did it go from Kate's Take, which was great, by the way? And you would always kind of elaborate on what your kind of superpower is, which is kind of systems and processes. And then why did you change that? Why did you change to Ditch Busy?
So believe it or not, I produced Kate's Take for 5 years. Wow. And 2019, it's like probably about this time of year. So like hitting spring 2019, I'm coming up on my 5-year anniversary with Kate's Take. I love the podcast. I love my audience. I have good traction. The show I was in a sticking point of growth was non-existent. Okay. I really had a passion for growing that podcast because I felt that what I was providing and the tips and insights that I was giving were different than what you were getting from a lot of other podcasts, just because it was like a raw behind the scenes look at what I do in our business. Yeah. A lot of podcasts are discussing marketing strategies and like all this stuff. Like I just literally told people exactly what I was doing on, a day-to-day, week-to-week basis to run the behind the scenes of a 7-figure business. So I think I did feel a little bit of frustration there. And also I did a lot of seasons on that podcast and I would really turn to my audience to help me with coming up with that content because I wanted to produce stuff that people wanted to hear. And I remember getting to the point in 2019 where I put a call out. I asked multiple times, like, can I get your feedback? I'd love for you guys to be involved in crafting this content and helping me come up with, and I got 0 answers, like not one person reached out. And it kind of just spoke to me and that like, maybe this is run its course and it's been amazing. It's been incredible. I loved every second of it. I still hear from people who tune into Kate's Take. It's awesome evergreen content. Like people can still listen to the hundreds and hundreds of episodes that are out there that have real relevant content. And I just felt like it was time I felt like maybe I needed to niche a little bit more because that's pretty broad, right? Like, hey, come listen to me talk about what I do behind the scenes of a 7-figure business. Like that, there's a lot of pieces that go into that. Sure. And one of the recurring things that I was hearing over and over and over was people struggle with time management. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. That's one of like my favorite things to talk about. And so that's kind of how I came up with the idea to like phase out Kate's Take. I was working on a lot of big projects at the time too. And I was feeling a little bit pinched myself for time. So I phased out Kate's Take. And I gave it like probably 5-6 months off where I wasn't podcasting. I was being a guest on other people's podcasts, but wasn't producing one of my own. Then came up with the idea for Ditch Busy and dove into that to see what I could create with a more niche topic.
And so So did you rebrand that, or did you just stop it and then start a new feed?
I just stopped it and started a new feed.
Okay.
Yep.
And what was that decision? Just because you wanted to kind of leave that one kind of sit, and then because you very easily could have rebranded. I mean, I rebranded this. It was The Amazing Seller. Now it's Rock Your Brand.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't, I mean, because you would have kept your reviews. Some of your audience would have stayed.
Yeah.
You would have picked up new. What was the decision in that? Just curious.
Yeah, I love that question because we get this question a lot in our community in Podcasters Paradise. You know, this happens a lot where people decide that they either want to niche down, maybe they're even expanding their topic. They started really niche and now they want to kind of like zoom out. And I love the idea of staying on the same feed because, like you said, you've got your existing listeners, you've got your reviews, you've got all this stuff. It needed to be cleaner than that for me.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to be able to start this with a very clear cut, like this is not what I used to do. This is this is different. And when you're carrying on like a specific topic there's a lot of times when it makes sense to pick up the same feed. And for me, it just didn't feel like it made sense in that way. Like I felt like I was going off far enough in a different direction to what I was doing before that, that I wanted to start it clean.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it makes total sense. I don't think there's a right or wrong, right? I think it's exactly what you're saying. Like what felt good for you. You're like, I'm starting something new. I want it to be known as only this. And the other one is known as that, you know? And I think it's fine. So what did it feel like to start back up again? Right? Like you're starting over, right? From scratch. Yeah. Like we all know that feeling like, oh, I don't know if I want to start a new YouTube channel or a new blog or a new whatever. It's like, how was that for you?
It was awesome. And it was awesome because we've been running Podcasters Paradise since 2013. John's been hosting his podcast since 2012. I'd been hosting Kate's Take since 2014. Going through the actual motions of starting from scratch, neither of us had done that for a long time. And I felt that this was such an amazing opportunity for me to learn a lot of new things about what it's like to launch a podcast in 2020, which is when I launched Ditch Busy. And also it gave me the opportunity to practice and do what I preach and our own advice. And I used the podcast journal to launch Ditch Busy. So that was actually kind of another thing of like not picking up my same feed, but literally starting from scratch to kind of have it be a little bit of a case study. So I used the podcast journal. Every single day I went live in our private Facebook group. I reviewed what I had done that day based on what the podcast journal told me to do. And it was a really cool experience. And I mean, I learned so much about, like, it really allowed me to get into the mindset of somebody who's just starting out because for all intents and purposes, I was just starting out. So it was a great exercise.
Right. And so was there any pressure there in the back of your mind? Like, man, I hope this thing goes okay. Cause now I'm kind of putting it out there in the public and I'm starting, and we're known as the podcast people. We got to make this thing great. You know, is there ever that in the back of your mind?
Yeah, there is. And I felt it, especially being that public with the fact that I was doing it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I mean, I feel it, you know, I mean, like whenever I'm starting something new and I'm going to put it out there, I'm like, I'm going to follow everything, but we all know that, like, we've started a lot of things, and you guys probably have too. You've done a lot of projects, a lot of things, some work, some don't work. I think the secret ingredient there is like, you just pick up the pieces and you start again, or you start over, and you know what I mean? Like, we learn from that, but in the same breath, no one wants to look like something didn't work. Right. Sure. And for us as being the instructors and the teachers, we want everything to work, but we just know that reality, but we also know that there's a lot of lessons we can teach from things that didn't work. Right. And being more vulnerable and stuff. So, but I'm glad that you shared that, because that's what was kind of going in my head. I'm like, you started from scratch, you got nothing. Now you got to build this thing. Now you're doing it publicly. So yeah, that's good insight. So how's it been going? Like, how many episodes are recorded now, and what's the feedback been like?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, this is actually great timing to be on this conversation, because I actually stopped Ditch Busy at the end of 2020. So I ran it for exactly 1 year. Okay. Twice per week episodes. So 104 episodes. I think I did that math right. Yeah. The podcast was incredible. It was so fulfilling. It was such a treat I had a lot of listeners from Kate's Take come over and follow me because, like a good student of my own teaching, I posted multiple episodes on Kate's Take, letting people know I was starting this new feed. I even posted some episodes from Ditch Busy on Kate's Take to say, like, here's what you can expect if you come over.
Sure.
So I had a lot of people join me from the Kate's Take audience, but I also had a lot of people join me who had never heard of us before, who
That's
found
great.
the podcast organically. And so what I did with Ditch Busy, it was twice per week, and I was doing like 5 to 8 minute episodes in real time. Like, this is the time management lesson or struggle that I'm dealing with right now. And this is how I'm getting through it. So I got to the point where towards the end of the year, I felt, I already used the word fulfilled. I'm going to use it again. I felt very fulfilled by that journey because I felt that a lot of it was something that I needed to do too. Again, going back to like starting from scratch, sharing that with our community, letting people see that it's not always going to be perfect and that you don't always, you're never going to know exactly what it's going to be. And you pivot and you adjust and you make changes as you go. So approaching the end of that year, I started repeating myself, really. I mean, I started coming up with similar struggles to what I had already discussed. And it kind of got to the point where I'm like, again, this is evergreen content. Anybody can pick it up, listen to it anytime, glean the same amount of value as they would if they were listening to it a year ago in real time, regardless of the time of it now. And again, it kind of became like we had a lot of projects coming up in the business. John launching his book that's coming out next month. And my plate was fuller than I wanted it to be. And having those feelings of fulfillment with the podcast, the evergreen content, it's out there. I know I can direct people to it. I loved every second of the Ditch Busy podcast. It was awesome in every way. And I was ready to end it. So shut it down December 31st, I think, was my final episode of the podcast. And I've been just guesting on other podcasts because I love the medium so much. John and I do monthly income reports together. So I'm a regular appearance on EO Fire. And just been kind of keeping up with podcasting. I mean, so much changes in the podcasting space these days. It's like every day there's something new. There's a new tool. There's a new opportunity, a new platform to check out. So that keeps me on my toes, absolutely, in the podcasting space.
Yeah, I guess, like, because you're like more of an integrator, right? Like, you're doing a lot of the stuff behind the scenes. And I want to get into that because, you know, what lights you up, you know, really is kind of like the systems and processes. Like when we're kind of like, oh my gosh, I want someone else to do that. I just want to create. But was any of you doing the podcast, was any of it just to give you that sense of creativeness, I guess, versus it just being you creating a funnel in the background and no one else sees it, but it works? Was there some part of that you're like, I want to have a voice out there, like not just John, right? Like, was there any of that? Was that one of the reasons? And then you're like, okay, I fulfilled that. Now I don't need to do that. Now I'm going to move on. Maybe you'll come back and open it back up again. You know, like what was the thoughts there?
Yeah. When I started Kate's Take, it was absolutely an exercise in get the F out of your comfort zone. Like,
right.
I was so in my behind the scenes role and not having to put my voice out there, not having to, you know, have my face on anything, all of that I was like, this is a problem for my personal growth. I can't just say that this is my zone of genius, so I don't have to do anything else, especially when that anything else was everything that made me uncomfortable. So when I started Kate's Take, it was absolutely to push myself outside of that comfort zone. Through that experience in those 5 years, the number of speaking engagements and the number of things that the podcast made possible that were all things outside of my comfort zone, I can't count them. I mean, so many things. This is coming from someone who, like, you know, behind the scenes at one time was my guard for like, I don't need to go to networking events and I don't have to show up at these things, because being in groups and meeting somebody for the first time that I had never met before and like networking or connecting or whatever you want to call it, that made me incredibly uncomfortable. I would go to like these networking mixers and I would literally hang up my coat. And then like my first opportunity to like hit the restroom was, my go-to.
Yeah.
And the podcast and the growth that I got because of that, of putting myself out there in an incremental way. I mean, let's be honest. When you're podcasting, sure, you're taking a big step. You're putting your voice out there. You're potentially being heard by hundreds, thousands of people, but you're still in your office, by yourself in a little bit of a comfort zone.
Right.
So it was a big incremental step for me in that journey of being, okay, let me prove to myself that I can do this, and let me, leverage every point of personal growth I can get from this. And podcasting has done that for me in such a huge way.
Yeah, no, I think my wife relates to that because she's like the one that doesn't want to be out on the stage, right? She wants to be behind the scenes, and that's something that she's, struggled with her whole life. I mean, she even talks about that back in high school, like not wanting to do public speaking, like just like, I'll take the 0 and let's just move on, kind of thing.
Yeah.
When I'd be like, let me jump on stage and, put on an act for my friends. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, it was okay. But that's why everybody's got their own strengths, but it's really awesome that you did that and you forced yourself to do it in a sense. And now look at you, 5 years of podcasting, another podcast you did for a solid year, and all of the growth that came from that. So I just want people listening to just understand, like, sometimes you have to face that fear, push yourself a little bit, because that's what will get you to where you really want to go. And it proves to yourself, and then it gives you more confidence to do more things, Let's dig into, well, actually, before I do, talking about podcasting real quick, and this is just a personal question. Are you guys using Libsyn still?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We were using Libsyn, and I recently just did an experiment. I tested switching my feed over to Buzzsprout. I think it is.
Okay.
You heard of Buzzsprout?
Yep.
Yeah. The one thing that I really liked with Buzzsprout, and so far I've been with them for about 3 weeks now, and the analytics is just about the same as it was in Libsyn. That was my main concern, and also, staying up and all that stuff, and not going down. But the one feature that Libsyn doesn't give you unless you pay a lot of money for it is splicing in an intro outro, like across all your feed. So like literally I can upload up to 5 minutes on an intro and an outro. I can upload that to Buzzsprout, and I can say, put this on all 950 of my episodes tomorrow. And then I can be timely, and then I can remove it and put something else there. I did it once with Libsyn, and I think they charged me like $900 to $1,000 for like, I think up to like 100,000 downloads, which was like 3 days. You know what I mean? At the time. So it was like, wow. And I don't think we did that well with it. It was like for a webinar or something. But I was like, man, every time I do it, I got to spend 900 to $1,000. And I found out Buzzsprout added this to their thing. So I don't know. I haven't heard too much about them, but I was curious if you guys had heard anything about them, or if you guys experimented with them.
Yeah, I've definitely heard of Buzzsprout. I know they're doing some cool things. I mean, that's an awesome feature. We have not tested them. We've been with Libsyn the 100% of the way. Yeah. One thing, I don't know if you heard, Libsyn acquired Auxbus. And Auxbus is like a platform where it's basically your all-in-one like recording studio. So you can do like splicing in. You basically create the pieces of the interview, and then Auxbus puts it all together for you. So you don't need to like be in any editing programs or anything. I think it's still too early to say whether or not Libsyn's going to adopt maybe similar features to that. Yeah. But I know certainly with them acquiring Auxbus that it'll be interesting to see what they do with that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I've been with Libsyn for forever. I mean, since I started over 5 years, and they've been great, reliable and everything. I mean, still the interface is still kind of like old, and kind of like, it's not like, your web 3.0. It's like kind of like a little bit old fashioned, if you will. Buzzsprout's really cool in that aspect. They also have some enhancements that you can do to your audio for levels and stuff like that. They also have a thing that you can actually do snippets of some content and then put them out on social. So they're up in the game. They're up in the game. The big feature for me is putting in a 1 minute pre and post on all 950 episodes. Like that was huge. That's big. And it's already been working really well for us. And like I said, it's only been 3 weeks. But anyway, I wanted to ask you that. Awesome. So I figured I would. Let's dig into a little bit of we always talk about, I mean, we could go on and on and on about how awesome Entrepreneurs on Fire, like the podcast, the millions of downloads, everything that John has done. I mean, been with Tony Robbins now, like all of this stuff. What are some things that you guys still struggle with? Like, and it could be just you or both of you, like you guys are running a pretty sizable company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk a little bit about how do you manage that? How do you manage like what you should work on, right? Because there's so many opportunities that you guys can work on. I mean, now that you've been at it for so long, maybe even just in the past 12 months, what are some things that you've struggled with? With everybody thinks everything's working perfect over there, by the way, right? Like everything in Puerto Rico is perfect, right? I mean, you got Gus now, right? You got Gus, right? Oh my gosh. Gus.
Adding so much fluff and fluffiness.
Adorable. I've got Maisie who's laying over here right now. She's my Bernedoodle. So yeah, so she's here with us. Yeah. So, and I love seeing Gus, by the way, on all the pictures, and congratulations on getting engaged. That's where I was supposed to tell you that too.
Thank you. So excited.
That was amazing. Yeah. So everything's perfect over there. What are some things that you struggle with?
I mean, like you've kind of like unwrapped it a little bit. I mean, we've really stripped away a lot of, we're 80-20 right now. Like we are full on 80-20. We only say yes to things that we know are going to really help us towards our goal of financial, lifestyle, and location independence. Like that's the lifestyle that we want. I mean, this kind of feeds into the team conversation too, of like, wanting to, we found out in 2018 that we were quickly working towards building a business that we didn't want for our future. Like it didn't align with what we wanted our life to look like. We were hiring contractors.
What was that like? Yeah. What was that like?
So
what did that look like?
So we're growing, we're taking on new projects, we're launching communities, we're, publishing journals. We've got all this stuff that we've been doing over the past like 5 years, and all of it's just like stacking, right? Which is awesome. Like I always like to point out the fact that like we've never in our entire history ever built two things at once, one thing at a time. Always launch one thing, create one thing at a time. So it was never like we're launching a community and a mastermind at the same time. And then we're going to create this journal and launch this journal. And we're also going to, be writing a traditionally published book. Like we've never done more than one thing at once. Get the thing out there, prove the concept, sell it, scale it, put systems around it, make it be able to work largely without us in a lot of respects. And then look to what else we might create. So 2018, we've done that multiple times. Got all these things going on. Our 3 journals are out. We've got Podcasters Paradise. We've got webinar community. We've launched Real Revenue. We've got the Revenue Crew. We've got all these things going on, right? We reached out to 2 individuals, like US based high level. I mean, we were looking for a CFO, like we were looking for high level positions in our company, CFO and a CMO. Okay. And that would have been a huge turning point in our business. If we're bringing on like payroll, in addition to myself and John and our virtual team, which we were like very comfortable with, and that's how we'd been rolling the entire time, we turned that corner to like having a CFO and a CMO, and like that changes our business. In retrospect, luckily, that didn't happen. For one reason or another, it wasn't the right time for these people. It wasn't the right fit in terms of like our goals and what we wanted to see happen. We ended up hiring neither of those people. And that flipped a switch for us. Like, whoa, wait a second. We're talking about hiring these like high level positions in our company. And it made us look at like what else we had done over the past like year or so that had kind of very subtly like changed the direction of our business. We had hired a SEO and marketing specialist as a contractor. We had multiple contract positions. We had multiple people on retainers. We had a designer on retainer. We had a web dev guy on retainer. So a lot of like very little incremental, but like, wow, in this past year, like we've kind of done a lot. We've added to our team a lot. I think at the time we had 4 employees, myself and John, 4 virtual team members, myself and John, and like 6 contractors that were essentially like kind of in a way full-time, either on retainer or like full-time.
Sure.
Our SEO marketing specialist just like out of the blue emailed us one day in the middle of a bunch of projects going on, all these moving pieces. We had just kind of like really zoned in on like, we're going to pick a top 5 focus, top 5 things in our business that are most important. We cannot say yes to anything that does not contribute to these 5 things.
I like that.
It was awesome. It was a great like redirection. It was a great focus. It was great on so many levels. But she emailed us one day, once we had all these projects going, she's like, I got an opportunity to work with another company. I'm out. And we were like, what? So that was another wake up call that we were like, we're bringing these people in these positions that we're starting to really heavily rely upon for the things that we're doing in our business. Sure. And that one moment paired with the CFO, CMO deal that went on, we're like, what are we doing? We don't want to rely on other people. That's the point of building our business, is we don't want to rely on like other people to get stuff done and to move projects forward and to launch or not launch. And, we started realizing that the business that we were kind of advancing wasn't the business that we wanted to run. And we pretty much like stripped a lot. We got rid of one of our virtual team members. We essentially stopped all of our retainer relationships, started working hourly basis on an as needed basis with a lot of our contractors. And we took that top 5, and that's really been our focus ever since. We've got 5 things that are most important in our business. And if it doesn't relate to one of those 5 things, it's a no. Recently with the book launch, that's kind of taken like front stage, and that's our full focus. And that's what we're heads down working on right now. Back to your original question is like, what do you struggle with most? Or what have we struggled with most? It's continuing to keep ourselves on point, on the path that we know we want to be on, because like you said, there are a lot of awesome opportunities. There are tons of things that we could be doing right now. And it's very easy to be excited about an opportunity or think like, oh man, I used to only wish and dream that like something like this would come my way. Right. But you have to keep reminding yourself of like where you want to go, what you want your life to look like, what you want your day-to-day to look like, because every time you say yes to those opportunities, you are changing what that looks like. So if you're saying yes to too many things, changing the way your day-to-day looks, that affects your future in a huge way. Because when your day-to-day is too full, too busy, you don't have time to play with your dog or like, have dinner with your spouse or play with your kids or whatever that might be, that changes your future. Yeah. So constantly like checking in with ourselves, staying on point, that'd probably be it.
Do you ever feel like even after like that happens, like there's you constantly are looking at that and then you're like, oh, we're starting to veer again. And then you kind of get pulled back to center? Or you guys are pretty disciplined now, I would say.
We are pretty disciplined, but yeah, there have been moments where there have been opportunities where we're like 75% of the way to a yes. And then we get together and we're just like, no, this isn't right. It's tough. It's tough.
Who is the one? Is it you or John, or is it equally? Be honest. Like, is it someone that's like, no, get your eye back over here? It's like Gus wanting to go chase that bone, Which one out of you two is the one that's shinier?
Yeah. I definitely, I'll say this. I'm definitely the one that is always going to figure out all the reasons why we shouldn't do something. John is, of the two of us, like in terms of like day-to-day, like minute to minute discipline, John's one of the most disciplined people I've ever met in my life. He sets his mind to something and like, he's going to do it.
Right.
So I think there's a little bit from each of us, but yeah, I mean, I think it's just like ingrained in me and like my systems and detailed oriented like mindset of like, and just, what do you like risk averse, I guess,
Yeah.
to always think like, what might happen if we do this, or what could go wrong, or why shouldn't we do this,
Mm,
type of thing. Yeah.
yeah. No, I love it. And I would have called that. I would have said, you're the one that's kind of like checks and balances and kind of thing. And then, and then yeah, I think John would be like, yep, that makes sense. Right. I'm glad you
Yeah.
pointed that out. That's kind of how it is with myself and my wife. A lot of times is she'll
Yeah.
kind of be the reasonable one, like she's like reasoning with things. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're right. That's why, I mean, we've been married. We're going on 27 years. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's insane.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, we'll
I'm
be
sure you
celebrating in
can.
May.
Oh, wow,
Yeah, yeah,
man. That's great. That's great.
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you and Lisa can relate too, though. Like there is a flip side to that where like sometimes I'll be kind of thinking like something's a no, but John will push it to the point and then we'll end up going through with it and be like, wow, I'm really glad that like you
Yep,
kind of put the hammer down and said, no, we are going to do this. And it
yep,
turned out to be amazing. So
yep.
there's two sides to it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been plenty of those cases too, whether it's,
Mhm.
whoever pushed on it and then you turn
Yeah.
around, you go, man, I'm so glad that we did that, even though I was reluctant because of whatever
Mhm.
the amount of
Mhm.
work I thought it was going to be or the risk that it was going to be. So totally relate to that. But that's what makes a good team though, right? Like you and John are a
Yep.
good team. I think myself and my wife are a good team. It's having a good team or someone on your team that can kind of keep things straight or at least challenge you at times on
Yeah.
things that you think might be a great idea. And then you're just like, no, but we have these things to do. So let's stay on point. What would you say to someone that is building that online business and they're feeling, number one, overwhelmed with all of the things that they think they have to do, right? And you're good at kind of like figuring that stuff out. Someone that's already up and running, I mean, they might not have a huge business, but they're building one. They have a family, they have maybe kids events, they have all this stuff. They might even have a job still. What would be some advice for them that you would give them that's kind of battling all of that and seeing shiny objects like, oh my God, there's Clubhouse
Mhm.
now. We got to go jump on Clubhouse now because everybody's on Clubhouse, right? I haven't
Right.
went there, by the way, yet. I'm not there
Me
yet.
neither. Me
I'm like,
neither.
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it right now. Like I
Yeah.
got other platforms that I'm on and I'm going to play there for right now. But anyway,
Mhm.
what would you say to that person to give them some advice?
Yeah, I mean, first thing, an exercise that I love that I think helps in so many different areas of like personal and business, just in terms of kind of getting a good hold on what it is that you're working on and how you're spending your time is like an exercise that I call taking inventory. And this is
Mm,
just spending a week, like cataloging everything that you spend your time doing. You could do it for your personal life too. I
sure.
usually have the exercise for your business activities. So, I mean, if you were to literally have a piece of paper follow you around for the next week and record what it is you're spending your time doing and how long you're spending your time there, one, I think it can be really eye-opening because we've all had this experience where we end a day and we feel so productive and we're like, I got so much done. And then someone's like, well, what'd you do? And you're like, huh. Um,
I don't know.
I couldn't really tell you like everything I
Yeah.
did. I just know that I did a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we literally don't understand how we're spending our time. So like a very real, straight up, like, you can't lie about
No,
that.
no.
So I highly recommend that people do that. I think it's going to open your eyes a lot and help you realize like the actual activities that you're spending your time on. Your time is like, I mean, how you're spending it is how you are living your life.
Yeah.
So if you want to tell me at the end of the week, you look at your sheet and you spend a collective like 10 hours on Facebook, like,
Mm,
is that part of your life goals? Is that how
mhm.
you want to be living your life? Now, if you want to tell me that like, 5 of those hours were to serve your clients and to forward your relationships with people, like that's awesome. But if you
Mhm.
can say the other 5 hours was like scrolling the feed and like getting
Yeah.
lost down rabbit holes and, doing stuff that does not matter for where you want to be in your business, like that's something that you should be looking at.
Mm,
So that taking inventory exercise is a big one. And then I would say In addition to that, I love like brain dumps. Sometimes I think like the overwhelm that we feel and just like maybe feeling a little bit on a hamster wheel. Like, I know I'm doing a lot of stuff, but I don't really feel like it's moving my business forward. And I certainly don't have extra time in my personal life. I think a lot of times a brain dump can help to just release like everything that you're trying to hold on to, whether it be like things that you don't want to forget, ideas that you have that you want to pursue, but like, you know, that right now is probably not the right time to pursue them. Brain dumping in like different categories of like, these are all the things that I'm working on, actively working on right now that I don't want to forget. These are all the ideas that I have that like sometime I definitely want to revisit. These are things that like people keep telling me about, and maybe I'll research them at some time, but like Clubhouse, perfect example. Like right now, I don't want to join Clubhouse, but like, sure, I'll check it out later. Like that could be a different bucket. Sure. So if you start creating these buckets for your brain dumps, you get all that stuff out of your head. You stop holding on to it. You'll feel 10 pounds lighter, first of all.
Yeah.
And second, you'll give yourself the opportunity to like really zone in on the things that are most important on those lists and be able to release yourself of like holding on to some of them. You can do all the things on all of those lists, but you can't do all of them right now. So you've got to start prioritizing your time in a way that like what you're doing on a day-to-day basis is in alignment with how you want to be living your life. That's like the biggest disconnect that I see. People claim that they know exactly how they want to be living their life and how they want to be spending their time. But if they were to catalog what they did on a daily basis, there is no connection, nothing. I want to spend time with my kids. I want to have dinner with my wife. I want to have time for myself to work out and work on my health and wellness. I want to launch my community. I want to start a mastermind. Okay, what'd you do today that helped you move forward in any of those areas? And most of the time, like nothing. It's all this like peripheral stuff that has nothing to do with you launching that community or starting a mastermind or having dinner with your spouse or playing with your kids.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like a lot of us have heard similar things like write down your stuff and like, but it is a great exercise. And I mean, I have to do it every so often myself. And I try to do it at least once a quarter, because when you start feeling overwhelmed, and I think you would attest to this, you keep reminding yourself the same stuff. So you keep playing it. And once you get it down, you can feel like you can let it go because you're not going to forget it because it's down, right? You're right. You do feel lighter. It's a good exercise. But I think it has to be done on a regular basis, because we collect, right? We collect more ideas, or, oh, I got to do this, or I should do that, or, oh, I heard about Clubhouse. Should I be doing that? I don't know. It seems like a waste of time. Maybe I should be. People are saying it's great. Like, to let it go, to know that you can come back to it, I think is huge.
And I think a tool that's really super useful for something like this, so you don't just have like sticky notes all over the place and sheets of paper, because like that's overwhelming in and of itself, is using a program like Trello or Basecamp or Asana, or like some online note-taking system where you can have like, I use Asana myself, but I feel like a lot of people use Trello. Like if you have a card for like ideas to revisit later, and a card for my to-dos for today, and you can start to organize and categorize those things so that they're not like in front of your face all the time. The only thing that should be in front of your face is what you need to accomplish, like right in that very moment. Everything else is waiting for you in other buckets, cards, whatever system you're using.
Right. Yeah. I've used Trello. And I like Trello because it's like you said, it's almost like its own little boards or its own little Asana. I've played with that because I was a team member had used it, and they wanted us to use it, and I was using it. And I'm like, you can just tell me where I need to go and I'll go there. But it was a little bit of a learning curve. But Trello is super simple. But yeah, I think that's really helpful. All right, Kate, I know you're busy, and I want to be respectful of your time. Let me know, like, okay, number one, we'll talk about John's book a little bit. Tell people where they can go to get it. I had John on recently. But again, awesome. I want to remind people about that, because that is coming out depending on when you're listening to that. And then also just let us know, what are you most excited about these days? So do those two things for me, would you?
All right, awesome. Well, John's book, The Common Path to Uncommon Success, launches March 23rd. We have pre-orders open right now. We have some incredible bonuses just for pre-ordering the book. One of those bonuses is that if you're in the US, you will receive hardcover copies of our 3 journals, the Freedom Journal, the Mastery Journal, the Podcast Journal, each valued at $40 or more. So just for pre-ordering the book, you get
Great deal.
all 3 of these journals plus 4 other awesome bonuses. The Common Path to Uncommon Success is a guide to financial freedom and fulfillment. I know everybody tuning in wants that.
Sure.
So if you're looking for actionable steps, a step-by-step guide, it will lead you every step of the way. Again, launches March 23rd. So uncommonsuccessbook.com is where people can check that out.
Awesome.
I mean, I'm really excited about that project, being a behind the scenes person and working towards a traditionally published book, which is new in our, world of things that we've done.
Sure.
Working with different teams, working with a publisher, working with a marketing manager, the different deadlines we're working to hit, the different marketing strategies that we've used, like all of it's a little bit familiar, but a lot of it's also brand new. I just feel like I'm learning so much. And I like my project management skills have had to be 10x to try and kind of keep up with all the moving pieces. So it's been a lot of fun.
And so that is like that one of the projects, right? That's going on like right now. And I know when I had John on, he was saying like, it was like, I think it was like, he said 11 months or something of him just writing and daily and doing this whole thing. So before I let you go, that watching that happen. So how much of that were you getting ready for this? Cause there's a lot of like build up for the runway, right? He's creating the book, right? Going through that process. And I'm sure he bounced off ideas and had, like he had said, he had other, people looking at like the order of things and how to, help him kind of make sure that it was flowing correctly. But there's also the runway to launch. And so what does that look like before you get to where you are right now? I mean, there's a lot of moving parts. How soon did you have to kind of start getting the pieces, built and together and ready for this thing?
So I would say like my bell was rung to like get fully focused on this. Like it's go time, early December.
Oh, wow.
Early December is when we really started talking specific strategies with our publisher. We hired our marketing team. So early December. And then by mid-December, it was like, start talking about this now.
Okay.
I thought that was incredibly early. Like that was a lesson in and of itself for me. But I guess when I think back to like the Freedom Journal and the Master Journal we did on Kickstarter. So that whole like sequence of events was kind of different based on the fact that we were launching on Kickstarter. The Podcast Journal, we debuted at Podcast Movement one year. So like all of those kind of like timeframes looked a little bit different. So yeah, to be called early December for a March 23rd launch. I mean, it feels great now because I feel like we've been able to accomplish so much up to this point. We still have a month to go now at the time that we're recording this conversation. So I'm feeling really good about where we're at.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. It's going to be a great book, I know, and it's going to help a lot of people. And I'd love to have you back on at some point and we can unpack kind of what happened and how things went and what went well and what didn't go well. And I'm sure you'll be talking about that anyway, and John will be, but I'd love to get you back on anyway, just to catch up. So, Kate, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you. I will put everything in the show notes, any links or anything that we talked about, so everyone can get access to you and the podcast and the book and everything else. So, Kate, once again, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, Scott. Thank you.
All right, guys, there you have it. Not much more I can say other than, man, oh man, I love being a podcaster just because I get to have great conversations and get to share them with the world and hopefully change one person's life. Like that's really my goal here. Being able to do this. Now it's called the Rock Your Brand, rebranded. I'm so like happy that I'm able to do this. And I don't see myself stopping, to be quite honest with you, because it's just a lot of fun. I learn a lot and I get to meet some really cool people and I get to share these people with you and I get to hang out with you. on my coffee talks in the morning, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I don't know. I'm just sitting here thinking about how awesome it is right now for me to be able to truly do what I love, serve who I want to serve, and just hang out with some really cool people. So yeah, I guess I just wanted to say, I'm glad that you're part of it too. I'm so thankful that you're here listening. And you know what? If you could do me one small favor, I don't usually ask this, but I'm going to ask it here. If you would just head on over to iTunes, leave a review on there. Let me know, what is one thing that you've taken away from either this interview or past episode. I don't care which episode it was. What is something that you took away since listening to the podcast? That would be amazing. If you would do that for me, that would mean the world. Head on over to iTunes and do that, and that would be awesome. All right, guys, that is it. This is episode 960. Head on over to brandcreators.com/960. Go check out the show notes, all the links that we discussed, how you can get in touch with Kate and John Lee Dumas and all the stuff that they're up to. And just be able to follow along their journey as well. All right, guys, so that's it. That's going to wrap it up. As always, remember, I'm here for you. I believe in you, and I am rooting for you. But you have to, come on, say it with me, say it loud, say it proud, take action. Have an awesome, amazing day, and I'll see you right back here on the next episode. Now let's rock your brand.